Oh, all right. Well, they kind of just do this, I think.
Oh, you know what?
Yeah, they just show a fucking straight line. Okay, so that's pretty much what I did then. So
It's not updating on your stream.
oh yeah, no, I'm not
Can't
in
see what
Solitaire
you're.
anymore. I was in a different application. I minimized it, so that's probably why. Hold on.
Hmm.
Crap. Maybe I'll record it again. All right.
So Blase, what have you been up to, man? Been hitting the streets or what? Been grinding that bit shoot?
No, not doing. Just
not doing anything.
no,
Hell
no,
yeah.
not
What's
like
up?
that. I don't know. Just stuff.
Nice.
How are you guys doing?
Good, man. Chilling.
Yeah.
Chilling with
Is
the
it hot where
bros,
you are as
the
well?
boys.
Is it hot? What's
Oh, it's
that?
the hottest, dude. It's the hottest. Super humid.
Where do you live?
Ohio.
Yeah, I'm in Florida. It's super hot.
Right, there it is. I think I captured it. Now should I speed it up? Let me see.
Yo, what up, Sir Edward?
What it do, baby?
Maybe I should speed it up.
How are you fine gentlemen this evening?
Well, fine, like you said.
Now
How
I'm
does
just gonna
you
do a
fine
note to self.
fucker? What's on Stellarium tonight?
We're trying to emulate that thing from yesterday and the day before.
What is this new argument stars go up? Can someone give me like the 10-second synopsis?
10 second. Oh my goodness. 20 seconds.
Yeah.
20 seconds.
Yeah.
I'll take
So
20
imagine
seconds.
you're on the top of a ball, like a basketball, right? And there's like
Imagine-
a star background, that you see in the sky or whatever. And as you're traveling around the ball, which direction are the stars in the sky gonna move as you go down under the ball? They're gonna move upwards, right?
Imagine I had
Or like
the
over your head, right? Is that the
Yeah,
same as
yeah.
upward?
Yeah. They're gonna come from they're gonna appear to rise from like the middle of the horizon and then like up over top of you would be the idea as you're going sinking under it, right?
So why is this a new thing? Isn't that like kind of obvious?
Well, that's what they say would happen, right? But we've got a bunch of flight footage where that doesn't happen at all. The stars just follow the sidereal rotation, like they're slightly displaced, but it's just following their normal path. It's not as drastic as it should be. So we should actually see like a new set of stars based on them starting from the northern hemisphere, which has their own set of lights in the sky, and then the south has their own. So as the plane travels from the north to the south, you should see that difference, right? So you should see like you should see constellations that are equatorial, and then you should see the southern ones, but we're only seeing northern hemisphere ones. So either the footage is somehow fake, or there's something else going on that we're not quite understanding, and we're only going to figure it out if we actually model it out.
So they don't move above us, and we've just never looked into it, really, or something.
Well, we're kind of combining two things. Like we just had like a further breakthrough, I think, just now looking at it and modeling it. But prior to that, the argument was that they should dive, like they should pretty much go from the horizon to above you. They should rise above you from the horizon as you're proceeding over the curve of the Earth. the star should correspondingly rise, every degree, 69 miles, right? So every 69 miles you go, it should rise 1 degree all the way around. And none of the time lapse footage that we show on north to south journeys over 3,000 miles show any movement of that sort. All they show is the sidereal rotation from left to right, no matter which direction you go. That was the argument up till now, which we all found interesting. And now we're adding and extrapolating from that.
Oh wow! Because like, how fast do planes fly? Do we
Like
know?
800-ish miles, 500 to 800 miles per hour, depending on wind currents.
Yeah.
So they would be moving up like very fucking quickly then.
Well, so if you think about this, right, we try to like chase the sun, which is supposedly 15 degrees per hour, which has a relative average ground speed of about 900 miles per hour. So you could maybe keep up with a celestial object. So the sky moves roughly 4 minutes, faster or slower than the sun. So let's just assume, for the sake of argument, the sky moves at 15 degrees per hour, and you have to chase that, and that translates to a relative ground speed of 900 miles per hour, which is impossible, I think, to keep up with. And even the fastest plane going in the biggest jet stream will clock it at like 803. So even at this fastest speed you can go, the sky will outpace you. So it's physically impossible to I think.
We would need SR-71 Blackbird footage.
Yeah.
That would top it off. What up?
That would help.
Like, flat Earth is officially the best. Like, the fact that like you guys are still coming up with new ways to debunk the globe amazes me. So shout outs.
Yeah, we found out any new stuff regarding this argument? What's the best they've got in response to Tabu's second video? Which basically just sounds like what we talked about.
Yeah, so the best would be that there's not new stars showing up as the plane travels from the northern hemisphere to the south. So we're trying to figure out what exactly the celestial constellation should be that should be shown as the plane goes into the south. So we're modeling that out now.
Like a reversal a burden of proof to flat Earth. Is that what we're saying?
Yeah,
No, we're just curious and trying to figure it out. The argument, as far as the argument, still they haven't made any progress. But I haven't hurled part 2 at any Globers to figure out if they have anything beyond. But you didn't account for rotation.
Oh, part 2's over. Part 2 is he did it perfect. I don't know if he was listening to us and Geos or what, but he came to himself. He's an OG, bro, but he did it perfect.
Like Zanuck, he responded to things that people like the critiques. Well, he even responded. He did what Jeremy said that he should do, dude.
Yeah, exactly. And like the only one thing that he didn't say, he said everything but one thing, right? Which is like, if you're matching the rotational speed of the globe, you would have to constantly be updating your speed as you change latitude, which is just retarded.
Yeah, but that means you have to max out at an average ground speed of 900 miles per hour for the duration of a flight to even approach a celestial object. Let's just say the sun and the sky move at the same speed. How would you go consistently 900? No matter how fast you go, you're going to get outpaced by it from any conventional means of travel. That's why Alan was like, dude, we need SR-71.
Okay, so in theory, if you're really far north, right? Like if you're way up in Canada, I think they say it's 600 something. Right. So in theory, if you went along that latitude in the proper direction at 600 something miles per hour, in theory, the stars wouldn't move up. And we're talking about going across different latitudes, which means as we're flying the entire time, the rotational speed is changing. And actually what that means, as you get closer, because obviously planes, they maintain a constant speed. So as you get closer to the equator, then the stars should move up more and more, faster and faster. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well,
because it's spinning at different rates, bro. Right?
Well, wouldn't they say that the angular momentum of the plane is carried or whatever? Isn't that how they?
Okay, then then we can't even invoke ideal rotation to explain this away at all.
Yeah. I haven't heard any better retort than they somehow tried to claim that it doesn't account for rotation. But if the stars are moving at all, isn't that the rotation that you say isn't included by default, by defect? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I personally don't even think that it counts as an argument because they have to somehow invoke the plane moving independent of the Earth and its atmosphere.
Yeah, which
as
is
if
a problem for them.
Yeah, because that's the opposite of what they've been saying this whole time. Now we're back to the can I hover in a hot air balloon? But let's just pretend. Let's like just pretend that's not the case. Like even just taking their argument is retarded. Like you would have to if you're saying and that's why Ruhif did. He was like, so if I go 1,000 miles per hour on west on the equator, it's like, what are you talking about? That's not what we were doing. Like, yes, in theory, if we pretend your argument makes sense, right, the stars wouldn't move if you countered the rotational speed and matched it in one direction. Okay, well, we're going southwest and northeast now. And so now if they invoke rotational speed, like matching the rotational speed, to explain why there was nothing going southwest, then that means as they turn around and go northeast, it should have risen twice as fast. The star should have risen twice as fast as the southwest would.
Yeah, but so now there's like other elements to it, right? Because I just kind of modeled it out in Stellarium from origin point to destination, roughly along the path a plane would take. And the way I did like snapshots every 100 miles or so, like in the sky rises like it should. But as I go from the north to the south, I should see, equatorial constellations rise up and southern constellations come from, visible below my horizon to being above the horizon to visible. And none of the actual time-lapse footage that we look at shows anything of the sort. So that's kind of weird, and I can't make that work in my current understanding of how I think stars work.
Oh, so this is how I was thinking about it for a plane, right? Like, so we have like a dome limit of vision, and so we mapped everything from the ground. But the stars are actually much more local, right? Than they claim. So they claim that there's like fixed location of stars, and they're so far away that they don't change. And the reason they change is because you're going down around a curve. But in reality, the stars are much more local than that. So as you increase altitude, you will actually the angle to those stars is going to change, right? Unlike on the globe, as you increase altitude, the angle is going to change. But then that would be like an actual angle change. But in addition, you still have your limit of perspective. So it's not going to be this real simple, like exactly the same surface up, because now the actual angle is going to change. In addition to that, you're going to have your dome limit.
See, well, JT asked me that immediately. He's like, so I don't get this. Like, how does the limit of your vision affect the plane? And like, I kind of thought my first answer was the amount of stars I can see in my azimuthal grid of vision, observability limit, whatever, doesn't change the higher I go up, because it would change only for how much ground you can see. But now we're saying that it could increase the amount of stars you see if you go higher, and that didn't make sense to me at first. But maybe that's it. Maybe that changes everything.
I'm not even saying that. I'm saying that, look, if I have lights on the ceiling above me and I start to get higher, the angle to the lights are going to change, right? Like if I'm taking angles from my eyes to lights on the ceiling, as I start to step up on the ladder, the angle to the light is going to change. And now you're going to add on top of that the apparent displacement based on hyperbolic space. So it's both of those variables. So now your perspective is affecting a different beginning angle than it is on the surface.
But does it though? Like, does the angle change when you rise to a star? Like, if you rise with the sun really quick, would it change angles, or would it appear to be in the same spot the whole way up? And then would the stars do something similar? Like, that's a weird. That's why, like, the first comparison kind of threw me, because I'm like, I assume that the amount of stars I could see from the ground would be identical to the amount of stars I can see from 32 miles up, or however far planes go.
I don't know that it would though. Why do you think it would?
I mean, I don't think it would change drastically, just because the amount of the sky you see on the ground is so vast that rising a little bit wouldn't change that. To actually see any more, you have to go further away, because the stars are splayed out over such a vast distance.
Well, it's not going to be a lot, but as you increase, like when you say the ground, well, you're changing the horizon. You're changing the optical convergence limit as you go higher. Same reason why we can see more as we get higher on a planet, because now that convergence point is changing relative to you, right? And the reception and propagation angles closer to the ground are changing. So I'm not going to say that I know the exact answer as to the prediction of the stars on a flat Earth? Because I don't. Because of what I'm saying, which is that the actual position to the stars would change because they're local. And I don't know how much they are. I don't know how local they are. I can't give you any math for that, especially whenever it doesn't even matter because that's not what we would see. If we knew the exact distance to stars as if they were something that's actual and there, we still wouldn't be able to use that mathematical prediction to find out where they are because that's not accounting for perspective. That's not accounting for what the perspective is going to do to it. What I'm saying is like the actual position would change on a flat Earth with local stars. Now,
Right.
like local could mean thousands of miles away, so it may not change much because thousands of miles away is still really far away, despite how we've been brainwashed to think that somehow that's close. 3,000 miles up is super far away. So I don't know how much it would change. I'm just saying the actual position would change, and then you would have the apparent perspective effect as well.
All right. Yeah, I mean
Does that
that's
make sense?
yeah, I can get with that. I think it makes sense. But like all the time lapses that we've seen, they only show sidereal rotation, so they don't show equatorial constellations rising in elevation the further south you go, and they don't show previously invisible southern constellations becoming visible as you go south. And I'm kind of thinking that it should. Isn't that what Amish's objection was to it?
Yeah.
I'm not saying that they're fake. I just don't know why that wouldn't appear that way. Like from my current understanding of how the celestial sky works, both animations of how the globe prediction, like the globe Earth flight simulation and the Stellarium thing that I just did, agree that it should look like that. I don't understand why it wouldn't show both.
Specifically, why you wouldn't start to see constellations that you couldn't previously see, as
Yeah.
even on a flat Earth, you're getting closer to them. I get that, but that's what I'm not claiming to know the exact math or anything. All I'm saying is that for a plain Earth with hyperbolic visual space, it's going to be much more complex because you're changing actual angle to it. Like it may not be the most satisfactory answer, but in theory, you would still eventually see them. In fact, as soon as you start to see them if you say you don't start to see them until further south, that's perfect for flat Earth explanation, in my understanding, and it's impossible on the globe. Right? Like there should be a very specific latitude that you begin to see them on a globe.
Right.
Well, on a flat Earth, it isn't that very simple and predictable because the actual angle to the stars is changing, and then you have to tack on the perspective.
Right. That's
Well,
why the Polaris can be viewed south of the equator, in my opinion. Like it shouldn't, but if the math works perfectly, then you shouldn't. But if you accommodate that in perspective, then it should just be like over the edge a little bit.
And in those
Not
situations,
wrong.
as you go higher, you can see more stars.
Yeah, I guess I just didn't ever account for that or think of it. I just assumed that you could always see the same amount of stars until you move like 3,000 miles, and then you get like a 45-degree shift or something.
Well, they
Like
have
kind of
an issue though.
how Walter
Stars should
Brislin's
be
model
moving-
works.
The stars should be moving faster on their model.
But like so, like
Even when we move, the stars should be moving faster because of the way everything is.
but like so, something like the Southern Cross should be visible from Brazil, where one of the journeys ended. It shouldn't have been visible when they started. So I don't know. I guess it'd be part of the whole sky to even find something like that.
For the globe, though, because the globe is invoking a physical obstruction of a sphere, so it should be a very predictable, specific location. Like I would dare to venture that if you take a time lapse as close to 180 as you can, and say you start like right above the equator and you go super far south. What sucks is you can't really do this because it's almost like you want to do it the other way around, just go north. I think you'll start to see the southern constellations or the northern ones further, at a higher latitude than the globe predicts.
Yeah, I think that's probably true. But they should like rise and set similarly to how they say they do on the globe. That's how they've been able to sell the deception so well. Like if I can see in a hemisphere around me about half of the celestial sky on flat Earth anywhere I go, then it would act identically to that. But in either case, that's why I say like that's my current understanding of it. Then why don't I see the stars that I don't see when I start in the north? Because they should appear like the ones that start above you should set behind you on your horizon technically, and the ones you don't see should rise up, a little bit before you get there, and then they should be, ending with stars that weren't visible before. But That's assuming like a whole
All right,
field
we'll
of
keep
view
this.
of the whole
We'll
sky.
keep this. So we have a hemisphere of vision, but why do we say that? Because really it's a sphere, but there's the ground intersecting it in the halfway.
Right.
Okay, so as we go up, we're getting further away from the ground. So now we're going past that halfway point. And it's going to start curving back down. It's
Oh,
going to,
yeah,
the
huh?
limit's going to decrease. Yeah.
Oh, see, that's interesting. So, what the hell effect does that have on things that set and rise due to perspective? Man,
Well, it's just going to mean that if you go higher and higher and higher, you're actually not going to be able to see as far as you if you were to create a linear relationship all the way out. It's going to actually start coming back towards you. Like, okay, we have our zenith, and now we're going to draw a dome down to the ground. So it's getting wider and wider and wider to that central point. As it crosses the central point, if you kept drawing it, it's going to start going in because it's a circle. Right. So if you go higher and higher now, that dome is not hitting the ground because now from where you're perceiving it from is much higher. So now it's going to start curving down.
right? Yep, that makes sense.
So I think that these are actually pretty incredible progressive steps, though, because this creates very distinct differences between a globe prediction and our understanding.
Right.
But they hijacked it from the ground. They didn't hijack it from planes or from 120,000 feet up.
Yeah. And it could be that they're vastly different perceptions. They look very different.
Well, it kind of makes sense that they would be, right? Because
But yeah.
like the azimuthal grid of vision would actually be a sphere. It's just a dome because we're on the ground.
Right.
But I mean, how much would it change, right? I mean, I don't know. How far is it? How far is it? It wouldn't change a ton, you wouldn't think, because what is 35,000 feet relative to whatever that distance is of that azimuthal grid. It wouldn't be very much.
Well, I think because I think the azimuthal grid has a very different value for what you can see on the ground for Earth terrestrial observations versus the sky. I think it's very different. I think the ground is very limited and rises with eye level and maybe 170 miles tops, right? If you go to the top of the mountain or whatever. But if you're looking at the sky, I think it's about half. It's about half of the celestial sky. So if you do the equatorial diameter about 7,900 miles, I would say, and I would argue that you can see about 4,000 miles in every direction ish. So about 8,000 miles as the sphere on the celestial dome.
Right. So then 5 miles is like nothing.
Right.
So it wouldn't change a lot. But it's has so many variables, bro, because the ground ramps up, but obviously how it's perceived to ramp up changes as you go higher and higher. You're further above the ground, which is half the equation of what appears to converge at the horizon. So it's like, that's what I'm saying. Like, I'm not gonna pretend that it's like real simple. I don't actually even care though, because it just debunks the geometry of the globe. Like never did I wake up and claim that I can fully explain how our eyes work at the brink of our distances that can be perceived at different altitudes. Like I
Right.
never would make such an asinine claim. I don't even know what's in the sky, bro. The science came and explained the eye. We can speculate, and we've created answers that would explain what we see on the ground, but I don't need to understand every square inch of existence. You know what I mean? Like, in theory, you could figure this out by doing repetitive measurement and experiment at different altitudes, different directions, different optics, different apertures, blah, 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 different conditions, and really mapping out how far you can see at different altitudes with different optics. But I mean, we haven't done that.
Wow, the military has.
Maybe.
Yeah, his is
if we were to switch positions with, say, a star at its set elevation, whatever the fuck that is, if we were looking at somebody on a ship and say they were glowing or, big ass flashlight, we would see that flashlight from the star's position as clear as it would be seeing the star from the boat.
So like here's
Like
this
when you say
awesome.
Amish had a problem with it, I mean, what? As if to say that the footage is not real or something, right? Because
I think he
Well, no.
insinuated that, yeah.
Well,
But
yeah, it was just because we expected it to be like, to see something more gradual in the shift of the stars. But no, you made a good point about the difference in what it would be to travel there with your azimuthal grid of vision at that altitude. So,
well, this is the beautiful thing, right? Like we're just going to take the evidence for what it is and then start to update our understanding. We're not limited to a specific geometric claim
right.
that might
Well,
yeah.
that's why I'm invigorated, right? It's interesting to figure out, and it adds a new dynamic to things I previously thought I understood. So now I'm scrambling to try and figure it out, not to like shove it in Glober's face. Honestly, I don't care about that. I'm just like, oh my, now I have a piece in my Shane's understanding of how things work that doesn't quite fit with others, and I have to like jiggle all the others for it to make sense now, or it's gonna bug me to hell.
Okay, but there's all kinds of stuff that goes into this, right? So look, so if there's actually like a torus field and then there are different layers of plasma and densities of mediums, and now you're changing your angle of incident of that light relative to those different layers as you increase in altitude, and you're tacking on your perspective limit, and you're changing the actual angle to the stars because they're local. These are three variables that give you such a huge window of how you could perceive the stars differently as you get higher on a planar. I for sure think that there is a torus field and that there are layers of plasma. So now you're changing your angle of incident to the light you're perceiving relative to those layers. And not just the layers and the different densities, but actually the geometry of those layers, which if it's a torus field, it's also curved. There may be a flat plane layer of stars within that, but you're still perceiving it through the curved mediums. It's like we're in God territory, bro. I don't know the answers to these questions, bro. I don't think we're supposed to.
Yeah, I mean that's a lot to consider. Plus, like in the personal dome model that Jaren lays out when he did it during like the day, and compared to like atmospheric conditions, the horizon's always where it's most condensed and most opaque or whatever, and the right above you is the easiest and the clearest and the least dense. So if you rise up and fill yourself into that least dense area, then how far would that extend? You're viewing, let's see, your scale, celestially speaking. I don't know, but like. I always saw like there's this video I have of a time lapse from a sunrise in like Alaska and a matching circular diagram on the Gleason's map, and I think that illustrates the limits of perspective. I think the sun dips when it goes just far enough away from the dude in the middle. The dude in the middle can't see it, and I think that celestial dome is about how far that we can see the stars, and that's what I've been working with, and that's how it works for me because they wouldn't be able to tell everyone that it's. What we can see in Map Stellarium 2 is exactly half of a sphere if it wasn't exactly half of the sky that moved with you everywhere you went on a flat plane. That's how it's kind of a 1-for-1 thing. So that's how they get away with it. That's why it works. But how does how does that work traveling over a long distance at altitude is below my mind. Because there's like this comparison shot that I have here from a movie called Mapping the World. And that's 170 miles viewing distance, altitude of 30,000 feet. So, like from a plane, the amount of ground you can see is about 170 miles around. But the amount of sky you can see is probably about 8,000 miles around. Does that make sense? I'm gonna lose everyone.
Sorry, I was reading these texts, so I kind of missed it. I actually charged $50 an hour, bro.
Bro.
I'm totally kidding, bro.
Time out.
I'm sorry. If you want to like
Time out,
concisely say
bro,
it, I apologize.
bro.
I was reading the text kind of.
Shame.
Okay, then my answer's no. That was good.
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure it out and speculate because I think the amount of sky you can see is about 8,000 miles, 4,000 miles in any direction. But the amount of land you can see, even at an altitude of 32,000 feet where a plane would fly, on the ground is like 170 miles. So the sphere of your visibility for ground is about 170 miles at that altitude. But the amount of celestial dome you can see is about 8,000 miles.
Right, but that's because the ground, the foliage, the pixels are collapsing.
Right, because like the same reason why things disappear bottom up on the ground, meaning that when it ramps up, there's way more sky than ground, so the convergence point is lower, so things disappear from the bottom up, not from the top up. But if you take that same principle and bring it up to 32,000 feet, I'm just trying to imagine how that would affect the sky.
Dude, on a clear night or a clear day, flying in a plane, you can see for quite some fucking ways without issue. I fucking love it. It's always blown my mind. And the higher up you get, like SR-71, they say that they could make out even more the higher up they get. So it's just all those pixels are still fighting for the same space, but getting further away, or at least in elevation, angle of attack is steeper down. Vision becomes clearer.
But yeah, I haven't heard any of the Globers present anything besides you didn't account for the spin. So it's still solid.
Forgot about the spin, boys.
Yeah. That's
Like,
that's
oh,
fair.
yeah, okay.
that video is like it's such good evidence for how reality doesn't match the globe, but it's also evidence for like trying to work out other shit on flat Earth.
Yeah.
Like, wait a second.
Yeah.
I wouldn't tell Globers that, right? Obviously,
Yo.
that's why there's none here.
Absolutely. What do you got any thoughts on this star situation on when they should change latitudes, bro? I know you've been looking into celestial nav. When do southern hemisphere constellations like come into effect where they're like, yeah, we're outside of the globe proximity or whatever. I mean, northern hemisphere proximity. When do they switch?
I'm trying to think of what you're talking about. I just jumped in. I have no idea what you're talking about.
You're good. So say you're on the glob, right? And you're in the northern hemi and you're, celestial navigating with the constellations that are in the northern hemi and you're trying to get to the, southern hemi, right? So as you start coming over the equator, you start seeing a new set of constellations, right? At what latitude do the southern hemisphere constellations start being the ones that you use to navigate on the globe? Do you know?
One sec.
Yep.
I'll see if I can find you the answer.
Oh, my man.
Nice.
Dude, we need Brian Leakey in here as well. Like, sent him an invite 3 months ago. Unread message, brother. You know what I'm saying? Come on, Brian.
Dude, we're like 6
Dude,
weeks old. That's impossible.
If he leaves to go find the answer, like he's never coming back, right?
Nah, my boy's got it
I
in
think
his
he's in
back
here.
pocket.
Yeah, Brian Effie Tests, I guess now.
Oh, is he?
Right below gay Dutch retard in the
No.
list.
Oh, nice. Brian, wakey.
Wakey, there you go.
It's funny. The first time I said that the closer to the ground you are when you're trying to look at a linear, line, like take a picture or whatever, the more pixels closer to the ground are collapsed. I was like, what the fuck?
Yo, I did hear a global refutation to the argument. Actually, what's it? I forgot. I think it was something Doofus said later.
What do you got, Shane?
Where he had to attack the linear relationship between the 60 miles per degree. So literally, he had to argue that like things wouldn't recede or ever raise on the horizon with distance. Because that's what they said. They say that we can't invoke a linear relationship between that of the sky because they're like their geometry of orthographic views in Euclidean space says that it can't work. But literally, as you go away from the middle, Polaris dips like on your horizon, right? Things things on the horizon will appear to get lower as you get further away. That's literally how perspective works.
Yeah. How does
So
he
they-
think that it works then if it doesn't
So,
change?
I mean,
what
I
does
don't
that
know.
even
That's what I'm
mean?
saying.
Dude, this is a
That's-
ball buster, bro.
That's a funny refutation. Then, well, you can't have that relationship that we know as observable reality because it's from the globe. So it doesn't work on flat Earth.
That's always
Like
a good
what?
sign.
Or I think this Dubé video has a list of like constellations and when you can see them by latitude. Hold on, let me go through it real quick.
Oh, nice. Yeah, so if we could match some of those up with, where the plane would be, we could kind of see what we should see, or what the glob says we should see. Alright, my boy's got a video here.
Okay, I got it. Let's see.
Okay, what was that? What was that question again?
So when you're leaving the northern hemisphere, going into the southern hemisphere, and you're celestial navigating, at what
And
latitude
just
do you?
put like the northern star as the star we're looking at.
No, just when do you start seeing southern constellations that are only in the southern hemisphere that are supposed to be obscured by Earth curvature?
Within 5,400 nautical miles of their GP. It's the closest that you can get before they start being obscured by a limit of your vision.
Within 5,400 nautical miles, you
Nautical
said?
miles, yeah.
My man, okay.
It's yeah. But mostly like people won't use stars that aren't within the 60-degree range, so anything below is not really usable. They're not going to rely on stars on the horizon sort of thing. It's always
Right.
16 above, 15 above sort of thing. Yeah, 40, 50, 60.
Okay. Oh, what did you do? The face palm. Yeah, check this out. On that video you posted, Absolute. Check this out.
Whoa, wait, what is this? Is this the same video?
I just like it. It's kind of cool. Got good music and neat looking at the stars going overhead.
Whoa,
Know what
wait.
to do.
That's what they're supposed to do. They're doing that here. Wait, did I miss this? Sorry, I was deafened. What happened? This is weird. Did anyone else watch this?
Skimming through it.
Do you see the motion that they make? Oh. Well. Oh, so at some point they do rise. But I think it's because he's going a weird direction. And it's all over the place. Many cuts or what? Oh yeah, it's many cuts. Okay, it's tough to... Still very cool though. But yeah, it's if you go some directions, they do appear to rise up at you.
Yeah, I seen that. I was watching it at a 2x speed, and then I was like, wait, what?
Yeah.
I had to go back.
It starts off doing that immediately, so I started clicking and I'm like, wait, what the fuck am I watching? Who did this? What's going on? Oh, there's Orion. Oh, it has a wonderful lapse of Orion rising, just the way it should, though, dude. Well, yeah, just the way it should. Oh man.
What timestamp?
2:20. Right?
Yeah, hold on one sec. Got you, dog. 2:20, you said?
Yeah.
Like a man of the
What-
people there.
What
Right there.
what did I
Dude.
miss here?
See Orion's there, and now it's rising up as like so. Southern stars are coming out like they should, right there, on that direction for that flight. Right? Or am I missing that?
Looked like it. I saw it rising up. So your boy
Right.
Orion
So
right
that
here.
yeah, that's an equatorial constellation as the dude goes south, coming up, rising in elevation as it should. Different than all the other ones, but this one's a
I haven't
compilation.
seen it. Show me the one you think is rising, because I see spinning.
Yeah, I think it's just spinning relative to a position,
Tell me when you're.
which gives it the appearance of rising.
Yeah, tell me when you're ready. What's it?
I'm ready. I'm watching on phone.
Okay. So right here.
Yeah, but it's all spinning. Wait. No, maybe not. I want that full video.
Yep. It's
This is a compilation, huh?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
a whole bunch of cuts, but like a lot of them line up, and some of them show like more than one shows them rising. Like I thought that we should, but it's in different. It seems like it's directional based then.
Well, that's what the Clovers are saying.
Yeah. Yeah, so that one keeps changing direction. So that's just sidereal rotation for sure. Well, man, that was tricky. Those appear to be rising right there too. So is rising just like directional dependent then? Because when they happen to like match the circumstances and go in the right direction, it almost seems to do exactly what the Google Earth thing expects it to. Rising there, but spinning off center, I think.
Yeah, they're definitely rising in that one. Dude, look
Yeah,
at
dude.
that.
So yeah, look at them land. Dude, so Ursa Major can be seen from 90 degrees north to 30 degrees south. Vulpecula from 90 degrees north to 55 degrees south. Taurus, Pisces, and Leo, 90 degrees north to 65 degrees south. Aquarius and Libra, 65 degrees north to 90 degrees south. And Virgo from 80 degrees north to 80 degrees south. And Orion's probably the biggest one, can be seen like virtually everywhere, 85 degrees north to 75 degrees south. So I guess it isn't everywhere. Or I guess people can't get below there to tell anyway, so it doesn't matter.
What do you guys think of this for measurement? You know, the deflection of the vertical.
What we got here?
So it's going to be really hard to see because I just did that on paint. but basically there's two sticks in the ground, just for reference to show you. And then there'll be, say I were to take a laser and shine it a mile or two apart, leveled and everything on one side, and you do it at two different elevations, and then you can see the yellow kind of diagonal from one side to the other on those measurements. The angle between those 2 points and the vertical two lines shouldn't equal more than 180 degrees, right? Because it would be flat, right? But what they're saying is the reason why their surveying works is because they add or whatever the globe prediction for the deflection of the vertical. And yeah, I'm just wondering if this is kind of like a good measurement or a good idea, or how it would be flawed. So you take a laser and you manually level it, make sure it's level at one side, and then you mark it where it hits your stake or whatever you're using to measure it on the other side.
Mhm.
My little girl, she's got to come in here. I'm talking, right? So she's just instantly drawn over here.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. So you're saying measure out a mile at a time, and
No,
if
no,
the,
no. You can just, because even Witsit did a one sec, baby. Witsit did a debate with a surveyor, and the guy was confident about 1,500 feet that he did. He was so confident, saying, "Oh, I have all these measurements and everything. I did the measurements, and I did my 1,500 feet, and I did it 4 times, and it all added up and everything." So if we did a kilometer, or sorry, a mile, that's further than 1,500 feet. There, should work now. Okay, well, it's broken.
Broken. I don't know what you did.
That's what
So
happens when you
that
throw shit at the wall.
so that compilation was interesting, dude. That video that you threw out, because that shows some contradictory stuff, and it seems to be directional dependent now, the way that the stars would appear to rise, but maybe not. I think even the ones that are appearing to rise, they're just like it's still a sidereal rotation, but
it's just
focused
the
from a
angle.
point where it looks like
Yeah.
it's rising. Yeah, I think that may be a trick.
Yeah, so if you were going north to south, like in the original ones, in your how much would the sidereal rotation affect that in between the time of flight versus how much you're gonna see when just changing latitude?
Is it wrong to assume that the stars would rotate at 15 degrees per hour?
No, that's what I would think. So
Right? That's a measurable thing. Now, how does that scale with a travel speed over great distance?
Fuck.
Yeah, man. So it's such a weird hypothetical because now we have like evidence, but we're trying to wrap our heads around what we think it should look like to compare with what we got to see if it's right. And that's a weird place to be in. Something that I've never seen. I have to imagine how I think would look and then judge the actual evidence to be wrong based on how I imagine it would look. It's almost like a Glover position.
It's the full Einstein position, dog. Shay, next you're gonna start telling me about 2 synchronized clocks, one in motion, one stationary, and what you think would happen.
Actually, time would slow down just enough where it'd be imperceptible to tell, but change the results in just the way that I need it to make sure that there's no measurable Earth speed.
Oh my god. Spoken like a true heliocentrist.
Doesn't that sound absurd?
Indeed.
Well, it's like, no, actually, the result I was looking for, I did get, but the measurement I used to detect the result imperceptibly shifted in an amount that changed that result in a way that made it not the result. But I know that it happened because I'm right.
Yeah, I know that I'm right because a bunch of math that I don't understand confirms my position.
So maybe we should find more videos. Wait, we should get JT in here. He spent like hours watching this stuff yesterday. Maybe he saw some stuff.
Yeah, where's Jay Tizzle at? Boston Mayor. You're being summoned.
Why does this downloader thing pop up stuff that says parse clipboard? That is super annoying.
Oh.
How do I get it to stop doing that?
Okay, one sec.
Oh, hide this bubble permanently. Got it.
GG.
Never mind.
Yep. There you go. Yeah, everything you copy paste, it'll try and parse it. So.
Yeah, that's what it was doing, and I copy paste like constantly.
It's like, is that a link? Do you want me to download it? Yeah. So
I have those buttons a macro to my thumb button, so it's literally a button press.
we got JT for a limited time, so let's.
Yeah, JT, what's up?
Bring it back.
Okay, I'm gonna hop out of the bed real quick. Hold on.
Jeez.
Oh,
How many friends do you have that are as good as Boston Bear here?
none
Like,
is the best.
None ever had
It's
one.
incredible.
and he's in such a loving relationship that his wife's like, "No, babe, go ahead."
Yeah.
God damn it.
He's
Oh,
so
let me
good.
tell you a funny story. So Dave Weiss, he did one of his beta test calls where he was showing off, like he shows his app off all the time, and I'm like usually the quickest person to pick up. And he goes, "Oh, Red Boston Bear, I knew it." It's like I pick up so often.
Yeah,
He's like,
he
"You
does it on
always-"
stream all the time. I saw him drop it the other day, and I'm like, oh, I know him. That makes
Right.
sense. Yeah.
So I was reading. So funny. She's my 7-year-old, and what's funny is she's been asking a lot about the Earth, like a ton. And I've been going over some basics with her. I'm like, hey, you know, man thinks a certain thing. They say a certain thing about where we live, says a certain thing. And I mean, you're really going to have to do a lot of research to figure it out. And I'll tell you what I think, but I want you to, you know, think about it for yourself. And anyway, we did a lot of talking, but it just seemed to be perfect timing because I was sitting with her reading a book and Dave called in or whatever. And I was like, and I showed Ellie, and he goes, "Hey," he said to my daughter, he's like, "Hey, what shape is the Earth?" And she said, "Flat." It was so funny because I mean, anyway, but y'all are talking about stars, right?
Yeah, so we saw a video that showed stars appearing to rotate the correct way when going the preferred direction, supporting the Glober's claims and going against what we had. But it was in a compilation of spliced up videos, and we figured since you spent a great deal of time looking at it, maybe you saw something similar.
All right, yeah, there's a good compilation one, but here's my overall perspective on it. Now I don't know what happens to the azimuthal grid of vision when you're 30,000 feet up. I don't know how big the dome gets or what happens. I do know there's less atmospherics, you know, going on. But think about this: the plane is flying forward towards the stars, and think of it as like a big, huge movie screen. If it's being presented onto the screen, I think in all these compilations, the stars just do what the stars do. So whatever way the plane is flying, they're going to either rotate clockwise, counterclockwise. They could come straight up from the bottom or dive straight down over the apparent horizon or whatever. Because if you looked at a GoPro camera or whatever with time lapse directly on top of the plane looking straight up, you're probably going to get a lot of changing angle of the stars or whatever. And people, I don't know. I mean, I may not know enough about celestial navigation, but I'm thinking at 30,000 feet, when you're flying in one direction, just like say 3,000 miles, I think the videos could be real. Now, there are a lot of people saying it's edited and it's actual like ground-based time lapse that they've like imprinted or implanted on these trips, but that just seems complicated with the cities. I don't know. I could be wrong, but if it's just some sort of weird movie, because when a plane's up in the air at high altitude, it's almost like a tripod. If they don't turn, because I've done a lot of time lapse, and if you bump your camera, it shows it. And for a long time, it's steady as it can possibly be for like an hour. It doesn't even move. And I've been on planes a lot, and I know it's just very stable at 30,000 feet. So I don't know about that screen projection. Maybe it is actually happening, and any movement you see is just what the stars do, celestial rotation or whatever.
Right, but in all the ones that you saw, did you ever see them appear to rise and match the globe demo that we've seen?
Yeah, that video, that compilation I've been posting, the first like third of the video, I'm like, oh crap, they are rising up, they are rising up. But as I
Right,
watch
right. I
more and
remember you
more
said
of
that.
them, as I watch more and more of them, I was like, it really just depends at what angle and trajectory these planes are going. But bottom line, I think the movement of the stars in the time lapse is just what the stars would be doing if you were fixed on the ground, because they're going in the same heading and they're not moving at all. It's almost like the camera is on a tripod, if you will. Now, I know a lot of people are saying, well, and this was my concern too, on Tribune, whenever we had that late night Tribune talk, I was concerned with, well, like, wait a minute, I've been digesting this azimuthal grid of vision, like I'm in this bubble in Tyler, Texas, and if I drive like 20 miles down the road, my bubble changes with me. And so I'm trying to understand how a plane can be going 550 miles an hour and its azimuthal grid of vision not change at all, and not because the stars should raise up and go over the top either way.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah,
hard.
I
It's
was,
confusing. It's real confusing.
well, yeah, we were talking about that just before. I know that was the first thing you asked me, and that we were talking about was like how far. I think my initial reaction was how much of the celestial sky can you see at ground level versus how much of the celestial sky can you see at 32,000 feet. And my first inference was like they'd be identical, you wouldn't see more, but I don't think that's right. I think Witsit was saying earlier that like if it's not we express it in like a hemisphere around you, but it really is a sphere except for the ground. It goes below the ground. Like that's the limit of your vision is of a certain radius and it extends spherically in all directions, right? Like that's we just conceptually conceive it of like a hemisphere above, whatever. So if you were to go up, then it would go up with you naturally, and then the down like before you get to back to the ground, you'd have the appearance of downward convexity at the outward reaches of your vision, right? Of anyone's vision of a camera or anything. So then try to take that into account from a height at moving at that speed. I don't know exactly what the stars should do on the flat Earth, but I do know that if you start in the north and you go to a spot in the south where they can see the Southern Cross and you can't see it from the north, at some point during that trip, it would have to have risen from somewhere or become visible from where it wasn't to match that, right? Like there are constellations that you can see based on latitude and some that you can't see. So if your trip takes you past the certain latitude above the threshold where it's visible to see a constellation, that should be reflected no matter what.
Yeah. So it's weird. I mean, one gut feeling I've had is these YouTube videos, like these people like Pilot's Best Seat, or like the YouTube names seem really quirky. And I don't know, like it is a production. It's being produced and it's probably got a lot of views. Like in a way, these time-lapse videos are in the same vein as the ISS 24-hour feeds in a way. Like I want to believe it, and I did at first, like, oh man, we got it. But what if it is a production? We got to be careful. We got to get like True Earth pilots to actually give us, honest footage, time lapse to see if it's different.
Well, I mean, the other thing is we started with one example and we said, oh, it doesn't do this, so therefore we win. And then people got like trepidatious, and we added a
Mhm.
second going a different direction. And we were like, "Oh, that's corroborative. Absolutely, this is what's happening." But then I just saw like a bunch more perspectives, and some of them do the exact thing the glow predict. And if I had saw that at first, I wouldn't have been like, "Yeah, gung ho, this is it." I'd have been like, "Interesting. I need to do a little bit more." Because now that I see that it does that, depending on direction, I'm like,
Yeah.
hmm.
And then there's one last thought is all the, and I mean, I know the planes are only at 30,000 feet. They're not at 100,000 feet or 120,000 feet like the high altitude balloon footage. But as a new true earther early on, I was like, why does it look black in the background? Like you see the ground and everything looks flat. It was really hard for me to conceptualize or understand what I was seeing because it's like, is that outer space? Wait, outer space doesn't exist. Like there's something weird that goes on when you get up high. And so, I'm just still trying to figure it all out, but I'm not as far along as you guys. So I'm like just giving you my input.
Right. No, I know that you watched a bunch, and we appreciate you.
You thought about this argument. I'm sure everyone has, or maybe I don't know. JT is considering the whole idea that we're orbiting the sun too, supposedly. So that you would think you would assume until you get their response that they think is a good one, that the angle doesn't matter. Like the fact that you would be able to be orbiting the sun at 67,000 miles an hour in a different direction. Wouldn't that mess up the time lapse? Wouldn't it? Of course it would, right? But they say because the angle that you're actually orbiting the sun at compared to the distance of the North Star and your angle to it, it wouldn't mess up the time lapse, which is ridiculous. But think about it. If you wanted to make like time lapse, you could either have a completely stationary camera with the stars moving, or you could move the camera in a perfectly circular motion, just like rotating the camera. But it would have to be so perfect to get the same result. There's no way that you have that exact same rotation from a spinning Earth that's also going around the sun.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. I mean, I've thought that it doesn't make sense that the stars in the sky seem to make the big circle, because if you live at the equator, if you did a time lapse straight up at the sky, they should zip across straight in a straight line. And I mean, there's a lot of stuff with the multiple vectors that we're supposed to be moving at all these speeds. Like you've seen the memes of the star supposed to be making like spaghetti mess. That's really what it would do. That's what it, yeah. But all these things are like, this wouldn't work. This is stupid. This would work. But they get us with their.
They don't get us. They don't get us. They just mathematically have an excuse. We're not God. I mean, it's just an excuse with mathematics saying that the angle, somehow they stay convinced. I don't think logistically even works out, even with the mathematics. Especially their vector mathematics that take all of the speeds and put them into one equation, so it just seems like one speed. When you just the spin of the Earth around this and the going around the sun could never be considered one motion. It's two different speeds, two different directions, two different radiuses. It wouldn't work.
Yeah. And I mean, I guess I was trying to say they get us because we play their game of trying to use their terminologies and their ways of thinking to like nail them down.
Right.
Their whole thing is 100% philosophy, and it's a religion, and it's satanic, and it's twisted, and it's inverted, and they can just keep moving the goalpost, and they can keep just twisting the hell out of it, when in reality, and I don't know how many people believe in a creator or the Bible. I mean, I do. I mean, back in the day, the preachers should have felt in their gut, like I don't know, what's this moon mission? What's this image of a ball Earth? That doesn't really make sense with scripture. Like people folded, everybody. It didn't matter what their faith level was.
A lot of those preachers were bought and paid for themselves. That's the problem.
Oh, really? Wow.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Yeah. But I mean, I love that you guys and girls hungry for truth, not what you think's true, not what the world says is true, but like the actual truth. That's what draws me to y'all as human beings, is you just want to get to the bottom of what's right and good and true. And so that's a lot safer going forward, because the world's going to get super crazy where people are not going to be looking out for their fellow man, and they're just going to be like losing their mind. But I think the flat earth community and truthers that aren't just like making crap up, but are really seeking to know what's going on, I think that's a safe bet. Like, I trust so many people that can hear my voice right now with even, my life, my family, just because I know you guys are real and you're being guided, I think, by the spirit, because there's a big spiritual movement going too with there's an awakening of, holy crap, there's so many deceptions. What's real? What's good? And then we're going back to honesty, integrity, connecting, eye contact, love, mercy, grace, all these things that truly matter when you weigh it all out. And so I'm proud of y'all. I don't know where it's all going to fall with this recent, plane flying and stuff. It's very interesting because some of these time-lapse videos are like 5 years old or 6 years old. So I don't think they were planning to trick us or something back then. But anyway, I've been rambling. I hope y'all have a good night, though. I'll probably be listening, but I got to head back there.
All right, let's take care.
Yeah, unless you
Thanks
have
for coming
another
on.
question. I mean, I'm no wizard, but I love you guys, and we're trying our best, and I
Yeah,
think
you
it's
too.
awesome, so keep rocking.
Well, on what you were saying, I would just say, like, like I said, the preachers are probably bought and paid for back in the day. Well, just the difference between religion and being spiritual, and the belief in God and being religious. And I hope they don't try to absorb the flat earth and then indoctrinate people with their interpretation, their skewed interpretation of the Bible in a way that would make things worse. That's all.
Yeah, the pastors folded with Convid, and they've obviously folded with the Globe fairy tale. And I think it all comes down to money and popularity. And I had somebody tell me that in Frisco that, I asked him, why did the churches fold on the Earth debate, on the cosmology debate? And he didn't think twice about it. He said money and popularity, and that's all it is. Because that they if somebody came out and would have remained open during Convid and said screw it, and they would have said, by the way, we don't live on a spinning space ball. We live on a stationary plane of some, immovable, and the moon is the perfect calendar, and the sun is the perfect clock, and we have seasons, and we have signs, and that can explain eclipses and selenilian eclipse. They would have been left out. They would have been left out of existence.
Hey, I got one more thing, if you can hear me. I'm on my AirPods and sometimes they suck, so tell me if you can't hear me. Jim, I saw your question. You direct messaged me, hey, wonder how high Jesus will have to be for all eyes to see him when he comes in the clouds in Revelation 1:7. This just popped in my mind. You know how like the sun runs its course and it illuminates a certain part of the earth at a time, and you have darkness or night on other parts. And I daydreamed about like what would it be like to have my back pressed up against the tippy top of the firmament looking down, and I was like, well, shoot, you couldn't see the whole world, and a camera couldn't capture the whole thing, and even if it was all the lights were on, I don't even think my human eyeballs could soak in 75,000 miles around or whatever it is. I think you can see it all at once, because that's what the Globers want. They're like, show me your model and what does it look like? Let me hold it. It's like, bro, you don't understand this realm. It's more than we can probably comprehend. But anyway, the main point was, I think if the sky rolls back like a scroll, literally, and Christ returns and all will see him returning on the white horse, I think what will happen is perspective will change too. It will be like, okay, we've heard about the analogy of the warehouse having a halogen light in the middle, and that's what the sun does, is it just lights up like a spotlight down, and much of the warehouse is dark. It would be amazing if Christ returns and the entire, like the azimuthal grid, the limited view is removed, and then we can see physically the entire size of the firmament. And as he's coming down through it, it would just be like, whoa, it's huge. Anyway, it's just a daydream, but I've been to the Grand Canyon and it kind of got my gut, kind of made my chest feel crazy, because it's hard to visualize, like it's hard to soak up how big the Grand Canyon is. And then as I've learned about True Earth, I imagine, what if we could see the whole place? But anyway, it's kind of a cool thought.
Well, what if they use their Project Fire Sign or Bluebeam or whatever to make you think that you're seeing this thing, and it's just them creating it?
That's very
Yeah, I'm-
possible. That's very possible. That might happen. That might be